Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew, and we're beginning chapter 10. And I want to just take a moment to introduce chapter 10. This is the second of the 5 major sermons in the book of Matthew. There's the Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5 through 7, and then the missionary sermon, that's this one in chapter 10, and the parable sermon in chapter 13, the kingdom sermon in chapter 18, and then the eschatological sermon, which is included in chapters 24 and 25. Some would put it back and include chapter 23. I'm not sure that I would do that, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But 5 major sermons. Matthew is the book of the fulfillment of prophecy and the book of Jesus' sermons. And so this is the sermon, this is the address that he gives to the apostles when he sends them off on their very first missionary journey to Galilee, to the Jews who live basically in Galilee. So he's going to choose 12 apostles, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. What is an apostle, and what's the nature of these men whom he has chosen? And we'll talk about that next time. But he pulls out 12, and I think we understand the significance of the number 12, the biblical number 12, 12 patriarchs, 12 tribes, 12. It's such a significant number that when Judas commits suicide, they determine they need to replace him, and they use lots, and they select a man named Matthias in the first chapter of the book of Acts, so they'll fill out their number. This address is very practical, but also existential in that he makes some very bold statements about who we are and who he is and what our job is and who cares about us and what we can expect to face as we are his followers in this world. As I said, some of it is very practical. He talks to them about what to take and not to take on the journey, what to do when they hit a town. What to do when you're rejected, what to do when you're persecuted, what to do when you're being ill-treated. And I noticed that he says when, not if. And we're going to notice that in the sermon. Just overall, this sermon, Jesus is their coach with a game plan that he's sharing. And he's telling them specifically where to go, where not to go, what to do, and what not to do. He's also a coach in that he is inspiring them to action. And it is very stirring. But Jesus is not Ted Lasso, okay? I mean, Jesus is not the kind of coach who says, look for the good in people, expect success, continue to share words of affirmation. Jesus is the guy who tells them as they proceed on this journey, it's tough out there. You're not going to be treated well by many people. In fact, they call me the partner of Beelzebul. They're going to say just as bad things about you. That's the way it's going to be when you're out there on the road. And so it's a real reality check that he's providing for them, and letting them know who they are and whose they are and who cares about them, because there are these words of affirmation. And there's the whole affirmation of, listen, the very hairs of your head are numbered. There 2 sparrows are sold for a penny as street food, but those sparrows, the smallest of the birds, God knows when every one of them dies. God values you so much. Don't think you're alone out there, because you're not. And don't think that there's not going to be a culmination of everything. Because this sermon is throughout eschatological. Jesus reminds them over and over again that there will be a day of reckoning, that there will be a day of judgment. There will be a day when those who belong to the Lord are welcomed home to the Lord, and those who do not are rejected at that point. Okay, we're going to listen for all of that when we read the text of the sermon. We'll pick up with that tomorrow. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.